Good morning and welcome. This is Ian Nethercott with the AutoHub show. I hope you're doing well. The reason for the show today was basically automotive. So we're looking at automotive websites today. So I'm going to start with a quick video today with one of our sponsors. In terms of not one of our sponsors, one of our associates from a company called Let's Chat. So if you're not familiar with Let's Chat, here's some details. Here we go. Enjoy. So good morning and welcome. If you are interested in language translation, definitely reach out to me at the AutoHub Show. I can connect you with the company. The name of the company is Let's Chat. We are doing an integration with VidCall right now. So you will see Let's Chat in terms of real-time translation of VidCall shortly. But if you have a website and you deal with multiple languages, they're backed by a small company you might know called Comcast Cable. So let's get into it. We're going to start with our trailers. Here we go. There we go.
Tony, I'm the general manager of Fred Bean's Kia in Langhorne. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about Larry Feldman, Career Changers USA. Larry and I have been working together for about the last 12 years now, and anything I've ever needed as far as recruiting, training, Larry has been right there. Larry's got me salespeople, he's got me managers, he's got me technicians even through the toughest times in the industry, and he is just the kind of guy who's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. But Larry also has the expertise to back it up. When he was in the dealership world, he was a top performer. And that's really important to my staff, especially as it pertains to training. A lot of people can come in and teach out of a textbook, but Larry has a real world experience dealing with customers, dealing with situations in dealerships that we go through on a daily basis and try to train on. But Larry's been through it, so he can really empathize with the people and tell you what's worked for him and maybe what way not to go. Larry is just always at a 10. I mean, his energy level is always up there. And I think people, they just love that and they feed off of it. He's not faking it. He is genuinely excited to come in and help you. He's excited to come in and help grow your business. And he's one of those people who just really enjoys seeing dealers succeed and have a lot of fun at the same time.
All right. Life is about connection. Having a support system to lean on. And roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, you don't want to be bothered? Fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. And not only will you have ads running, but your own staff is going to be promoting your brand and promoting themselves within the dealership and within the business. So it's like running an ad times 100-fold because your entire staff is participating in the process. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now.
Good morning and welcome. So the topic of the session today is automotive websites, and we have two technology companies on today. Jason Silverberg of NABBAT, and then of course we have Doug Reeves from A to Z Sync, and then we have the most technical person in the room, Mr. Larry Feldman, because he's so technical. I'm sure he has some insight on automotive websites and digital process. Just so if you missed it this morning, I did play a portion of an interview with a company called Let's Chat. They're backed by a small company called Comcast Cable that you're probably familiar with. And they do real-time language translation in 104 languages with a 97% accuracy globally for sporting events, and are now doing automotive websites. So if you do have a website and you live in a market where you have multi-language, it's a great tool for pure transparency. VidCalls is integrating right now, so we will have language ability very shortly in all the same languages. But let's start with Larry, since he was on first. Larry, maybe tell us a little bit more about what you do in the digital landscape, since we're talking about websites. And also, if you could talk a little bit about dealerships and automotive websites and what your opinion is, being the least technical person in the room.
Well, I absolutely think most dealerships, if they really took a look at their own website, they'd either scrap it or call the suicide prevention hotline, because most websites are so bad, have so many broken links, or just so misrepresent what the dealership wants to do, that I think, like everything else we do, but maybe more so, it's really due for an examination by every dealer. My stuff's simple. I have simple websites. I keep an eye on it. People that work for me keep an eye on it, and it helps me attract business. But I don't think I get much business if the information was wrong, or the phone number was wrong, or everything was outdated.
Fantastic. And Doug, I know you guys don't do websites, but you probably work with a lot of website providers.
Yep.
What's your opinion? I mean, obviously, I've looked at probably 30 to 50,000 websites because I used to work for a website company. But what's your opinion on the state of website platforms and, what the future holds? I mean, you probably have a unique view, I would think.
Well, yeah, because we have a retailing tool that needs to sit on top of websites. And what we're finding is a couple of things. One, pretty frustrating with the OEM dictates what tools you can and can't use, because I don't think that's always in the customer's best interest, let alone the dealership's best interest. But more significantly, notice it's just websites are so busy. There's so many pop-ups. There's so many distractions that they end up not being user-friendly. And I think to a large degree, they end up painting the dealership in a bad way, because they're designed to make it the first leg of an engagement with the dealership, not a separate part of engagement, but it's just the first part of it. And they make it so difficult that I'm sure a lot of customers just bail. And I think that's too bad.
Right. Well, we did have Jason Silberberg on from NavDat. I think he probably had a technical problem, but just in case you're not familiar with NavDat, they're an Angular-based platform. For pure transparency, I used to work for them. So, they were revolutionizing, when I worked for them, websites in terms of moving to a new language, but more importantly, doing something different in the web space. But maybe Jason can spend a little bit of time, since he's rejoining, on what's different with NavDat, but more importantly, what's new as we move into, I guess, the big stuff, which is Google 4. And how Angular or websites built on that are different from the lion's share of websites in the industry, which are around WordPress, I still think. But maybe Jason can speak to that. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, can you repeat that? I had to jump off.
Yeah, no problem. Well, obviously introduce yourself and obviously NavDat as a company, but also, as we work on websites in 2024, what's the future of them? But more importantly, what makes NavDat different from your run-of-the-mill website platform that seems to be out there in automotive? We talked a little bit about OEMs and how they influence, but go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate being here.
No problem.
Yeah, I think, first of all, we're a tech company, and we happen to work in automotive. And our platforms are built with Google's own Angular framework. Gives us a lot of ability to do things that other providers out there can't do. And I think we all can agree that, more doesn't equal, right?
Yeah.
The more things you put on a website doesn't mean more leads you're going to get, right? So I think we have to keep in mind that people are online every day, shopping. If you look at Uber, even Uber Eats, and then your e-commerce like Amazon and Costco. And so when they come into an automotive website, you really want to make sure that the experience that they have is kind of on par with expectations. So, having a clean, easy navigational website will post well for the dealer and for the consumer at the end of the day. And we have to keep in mind that 70% of all automotive traffic is mobile. So you have to really think about the idea of visibility and placement, digital real estate, and the friction that you can impose on consumers when you add a ton of bells and whistles to the site.
Thanks for that.
And
Go ahead.
No problem.
Go ahead.
No, you put that question. What does the future of
what do you think the future holds for websites?
Well, I mean, I think if you look, 3 to 5 years from now, I think there'll be a lot more personalization with DDPs and integration of everything in first-party data. I think the web provider is going to be the driver of the entire experience. If you look at it, 10 to 20 years from now, I mean, who knows what it will look like? It could be AI driven, right? And dealers won't even have a website. There will be a consumer talking to their phone or at their computer and telling it, hey, I want a Honda Accord, and who in my social media feed has one, and reach out to them and find out what they think about it, and reach out to my local Honda dealers and get a lease offer. And then you'll instantly have that data coming back to you. I mean, the future right now with the integration of AI is really exciting. I don't know if it's 5 years from now, but I think as AI progresses, what we might see in 10 to 20 years is going to be really cool.
So
Jason, question.
Jason, question from Larry. Does it amaze you like it amazes me that they haven't figured out that they got to make this stuff as simple as possible? That the more complicated they make it, the more they antagonize and push the people off the site that you're trying to bring them onto?
Well, I think we have to keep in mind that we're dealing with dealers here, and the business operation happens in a 30-day cycle. They're like a football coach, right? You don't win, you're out. And if you look at the data and you look at the algorithm, more conversions you get, more opportunities you have will equate to more car sales. And you can't fault the dealer for wanting to try, but they don't have the data in front of them to sit there and say like, hey, what do I really need to do from a mobile perspective, from a desktop perspective, in order to really help my business, in turn help the customer and get more opportunities from that traffic. And at the end of the day, they're being bombarded with third-party providers, every single day, phone and email, and and a lot of them, and I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them don't add to the net positive, right? It is more of a robbing Peter to pay Paul. And at the end of the day, you may have more or even less leads than you did the prior month, even though widget A had 50 leads and they had 0 the month before. That doesn't mean your overall lead count went up. But I think it comes down to business, and the business is a 30-day cycle. And we work off of months, right? Dealers work off of months, and they want to sell more cars every single month. And if they feel like a product or a tool is going to help them get there, then they want to add it. And unfortunately, what happens is it compounds over time, and you end up with a site that looks like Disneyland.
Yeah, but Jason, I'm a sales trainer as well as a recruiter, and I always say that it should be mandatory that during a sales presentation you should do a service walk, because if we don't get these people into service and keep them there, we lose everything. Well, I think it should be mandatory that GMs look at their own website once in a while.
Well, I think it is coming around. I think the web providers at the end of the day have to take ownership of it, and they have to be responsible for education. And if we can educate the dealers and we can show them the data, and I think they're starting to get into it more, right? We have dealers that are like, hey, what does my lighthouse data look like? And we take them in there, we show them the tree map and show them, hey, look, widget A, is eating up or is responsible for 40% of your load time of your website, right? Like you really need to rethink about having them, replacing them, or talking to them about reducing the bloatiness of their code. And dealers are starting to worry, and that's why the OEMs are getting involved. At the end of the day, the OEMs are getting involved because they want to put some safeguards in there in order to help the dealers, and at the end of the day, help the consumer be able to navigate the site without it being a hindrance, right? All these third parties popping up, and and they don't typically integrate very well either. So they're blocking, buttons, CTAs, navigation, and it becomes a horrible experience for a consumer. So there's a lot that goes into it, right?
Yeah.
What do you see as the top 2 or 3 reasons why people abandon a dealership's website?
I mean, okay, I think there's a couple of things. One, we have a technical point of view, right, of abandonment. So you're not going to lose all your traffic at one time over one thing. You have, it's a waterfall approach, right? You'll lose some traffic here, you might lose some traffic here. At the end of the day, what you want to do is retain as much traffic as you possibly can, and that will obviously create more opportunity. Load time would be one, right? And then you look at the functionality of the site, right? And then you look at the UI and the UX. Consumers want a cool experience when they're coming into a website, no matter what it is. And then you get into the other part, like, do I have that vehicle, right? Inventory would be another one. Load speed, not finding it. But at the end of the day, you got to take into account that when you look, like we talked about a little bit, 70% of automotive traffic is mobile. And when you dissect that data, a mobile consumer will only hang out on an automotive website for about 2.5 minutes. And that will equate to about 3.5 pages of content. They're not going deep into the site, right? It is home, SRP, VDP, maybe back to the SRP. So dealers really have to rethink that idea of like where they're putting things, how they're putting things, because at the end of the day, the ownership of information gathering right now is exclusively on the consumer, and they're not going to do it. So how can the dealer take ownership of that and turn it around? No different than a consumer walking on a lot and then the manager saying nobody go out there and greet them, let them walk the lot themselves and figure it out. We can all agree they're going to go right back into their car and drive off and be like, there's nobody there. The website is no different, right? People are coming in and they want information. They're not going to go deep into the site, but how does the dealer deliver the information digitally to the consumer, right? A lease offer, finance offer, buy online, whatever it might be. And dealers have to start to think a little bit differently than, tools, leads. Because if they start looking at it from, am I providing the information to the consumer that I need to? Are they getting the info that they want? Because if you do that, then that will create more conversion and more opportunities.
I'm curious between you and having Tim here and even Larry. We talk about hiring at dealerships, and it sounds to me as if perhaps dealerships should spend more time finding the right credentialed or individuals with the right expertise to really address this. Do you find that dealerships just tend to undervalue a person to oversee something along these stature?
Well, yeah, I think they do. I mean, at the end of the day, right, they're playing on the football field every day, and they're trying to score touchdowns. And all of us, right, your tool, Doug, our platform, we're all equipment at the end of the day that they utilize. And the better equipment that you have, and that could be from a training process, right? If you have better training, That means your team's working out better. When you're getting on that field, they're able to execute better, right? Because we always talk about, people and process. That starts with training. But we are all kind of a piece of equipment that the dealers can utilize. And if they have the best equipment and they listen to the experts that they have that are part of their team collaboratively, they'll end up being better at the end of the day. I mean, we have dealers that tell us all the time, like, oh my God, we were number 7 or 8 in our district, we're number 3, and we're selling more cars than we before. Our internet department was doing 100 cars a month, we're doing 200 a month, consistently doing 200 a month now. It does make a big difference because we can all agree, and every dealer can agree, that their digital dealership, as corny as that is, their website is their most important asset. It's their most important equipment, if you want to call it that, right?
Hey, Jason, you're I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think your analogy breaks down a little bit. We are on a 30-day cycle, so we are like a coach who tries to win every day. But even the bad football teams watch film during the week. What they did last week, it was good or bad, what their opponent does. And I think the breakdown is no matter who you hire, if you don't supervise them and inspect and expect, you can't guarantee you even get close to a good result. And I think a lot of times we hire people and pop them in and figure, okay, it's autopilot, and that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. I mean, hey, you can make it as data driven as you want to. I mean, we've had dealers who have gone in and they have been like, okay, I have my web form and I have a form provided by a third party, and they've gone into it and they're like, okay, I can see that my web form, I'm closing at 10 or 12%. The third party CTA form, I'm closing at 8%. I now know from a dealer perspective, I'm better off because of my process that I might have. That I want consumers to fill out my lead form on my website and not go through the third party CTA because I have a better closing rate on them, right? No, no different in looking at your quarterback and how far can they, what is their completion rate? 40 plus yards on the left side versus 40 plus yards on the right, right? You can really get into the data and it can make a significant difference because if you can move conversion rates, you can move closing rates by 10, 20, 30%, that can add, anywhere between 5 to 15 cars a month, if not more.
So is that a problem with just the new technology they're adding without really thinking it through, or is that just not understanding what that can do? That's what I see a lot with dealers is, yeah, I'm adding all these new bells and whistles. Am I looking at the upside of that, or am I just adding more stuff to quote your sort of Vegas analogy? Like I see a lot of CTAs and a lot of widgets, but are they just adding those hoping, or are they just, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes back to what I kind of talked about before was, the dealer believes and really has that belief that adding that third party is going to increase their opportunities. They want to add it. And I don't think dealers really have time and they don't have the people to dig into the data to really look and make a decision that is really based off of information that is that granular. Right.
So Doug, obviously you're adding things to websites. What do you feel is the biggest win from adding your tool versus, these other shiny bongle technology stuff that obviously, to quote Jason, is probably not working?
Well, I would, we add ours to Jason's platform, but really a couple of things. One is with our digital retailing tool, what we stressed was simplicity and flexibility. We don't want to force a customer to do something. We want to let them do it in their own order, in their own way. We don't put a lot of guardrails, a lot of unnecessary steps involved in order to accomplish whatever it is they want to accomplish. And the other thing that's critically important to us is whatever is done on the site is exactly what is seen in the dealership. There's no lost data. There's no screwed up integrations that make calculations wrong. We do it on a single calc engine from online to in-store so that the salespeople can literally pick up where the customer left off and just keep moving forward. Customers don't want to keep going back and having to repeat the story over and over again and get frustrated because the payment that they saw online doesn't match the payment in the store. So we're adamant about that.
Interesting. So Tim, I mean, obviously you don't work in websites, but obviously you work in new tech and data a lot. I know Jason was talking significantly around adding dealers that want to add stuff to their website, like Snap-on tools or whatever, but not really understanding sort of the net negative or the net positive of that technology. I mean, what are you seeing on the data side of that? Like, when you're talking to dealers about websites?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely all about data. Websites are where a lot happens, but it's not the greatest asset, right? It is for the organic search and many times customers that you forgot about, right? That one that somehow believe in them will go to your website first. So I think the point about plugins and apps and web apps, right? This is the house of cards. This is twofold. This is more data and more dashboards than a dealer is going to be able to hire against and use and manage. The other side of it is it opens the footprint of vulnerabilities from a cybersecurity standpoint. So the thing that when I hear Doug talk about removing, let's work with the dealer and understand how the employees, this gets into Larry's world too, is how are the employees expected to do things in 5 or 6 or 10 steps or 3 times a week when in fact technology can be there to make that 2 or 3 steps or no steps from an automation standpoint and get them focused on the customer relationship, which to Doug's point, and just to go right back to Doug, is about the most frictionless experience possible. It's if you give me too many things to click on your website, and I think I was going right to Jason explaining this, was, if I'm coming from my phone, I'm at a stoplight, or my car made a funny sound in the parking lot of Walmart, and I'm just going to visit your website real quick. I'm going to be there for 2 or 3 pages. I'm going to be there for the 5 minutes or the 2 minutes that I have spare, or the 30 seconds before the light turns green. So if you're putting a bunch of self-loading stuff in front of me, if you're putting automatically loading content in front of me, shame on you. I'm looking for something. Same thing with your call center or your call operation.
Right.
Don't make me call a number and press 1 for sales and 2 for service. I know I have a relationship with a human there, and I should have their phone number, or I should have a directory where I can just call their name and ring them directly, right? I mean, that's at the core of what we're talking about here is what everybody knows is the truth. Is car dealers have optimized for themselves to sell more vehicles. They haven't optimized for anything else, especially taking care of the customer or building empathy or making that experience more fluid and frictionless, which is why only single percentage of people buy a second or third car from the same dealer.
Right.
Right.
So the biggest challenge, I mean, obviously to solve when you're working with clients, I mean, Jason, I'm sure can speak to this, but let's start with Doug on that. I mean, what is the biggest challenge that you feel is there to solve other than technology when you look at websites? I mean, Jason was talking about these devices, and I think that's a big misstep for a lot of dealers is it might work great on a desktop, but so few people are using desktops, especially as you look at younger people. And it's not like their attention span is growing. I mean, what's the biggest challenge you feel is yet to solve or that you're solving, Doug, in 2024?
Well, candidly, I think the biggest challenges that the industry faces is companies develop widgets, but they don't understand the industry. So they plug in this tool and they think it's going to work, but they haven't really taken the time to figure out how it really affects the operations within the walls of the dealership. To Tim's point, it's got to be a 1 or 2 step process for a sales team. If it's going to be a 10-step process, yeah, you got to just, but it doesn't really help efficiencies. And everything has to be driven towards efficiencies. And I think that's a problem that we see in this industry a lot, is that you have these companies that are brilliant companies, but they don't understand the intricacies of the dealership.
So they're making it too complicated? Is that what you think?
They're either too complicated or it's just not intuitive. They're just not thinking along the lines of how is this going to help a dealership? It's just going to be, here's a cool tool that does a lot of cool shit, but does it really help the store? No.
Yeah, I mean, one of the many things I really like about the NABBAT platform and transparency, I don't work for NABBAT, but was just the cleanness of the site. When I looked at websites, pick the platform, there just seemed to be a lot of complexity that nobody was looking at. Like it just seemed like, to Larry's point, there was a lot of broken stuff, but more importantly, the amount of CTAs on VDPs and SRPs was crazy to me. But also it was just, when you look at sites like Apple or Amazon or Picket, I just want to be able to easily get the information I want and buy that product, or at least move towards buying. And I think that's where dealers really need to up their game. I mean, when you look at integration and stuff, right?
If you think about it, Amazon is obviously highly successful. Everybody goes there. I mean, the number of people that go to it, it's astronomical. But what they like most of all is that it's very simple. Very easy for them to buy absolutely anything or engage or find out or anything. Dealerships need to map their websites just off of that. It's got to start with the consumer first, and it doesn't.
Right. What do you think, Larry?
Doug, it's endemic in everybody's thinking. I got an offer from a big company to throw a lot of money my way, and I'm in the process of trying to buy another property. So I reached out to him. It said, contact us. We want to contact us, and pushed me right back to the website that gave me the number. It just never stopped. The people, you had it right. Amazon has it perfect. They make it easy. You hit a button, it's at your house. But we seem to want to make people jump through so many hoops that it's almost like we're saying, you're bothering us. Why are you bothering us? It's the same concept of calling for an oil change and they tell you, yeah, I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, do you want my business, or do I have to just put this unbelievable effort to try to earn the right to do business with you? I mean, that's just asinine.
Right. Jason.
And we're in a world where everybody's overly sensitive and everybody's easily offended. So now more than ever, you want to make everything unbelievably and fun.
Yeah, I mean, think about it logically. How many times do you go to a website, you start playing with something, you get frustrated, you're like, I'm out. I just bag it. I will do tea time. If it's too much of a hassle, I'm out. I'll go find another golf course. I'm not jumping through all these hoops.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, that's it. At the end of the day, is why do you want to make it so challenging? And this is to Larry's point. This is not limited to retail automotive. This is something that how often do you hang up when you call the 1-800 number on the back of your credit card or on the mail and they put you on hold, only to get to somebody who says, I need to get you to somebody else to help you with your situation, right? And this is the macro situation that Jason's talking about with apps on a website, with little plugins on a website, with a about two different bot companies, on your website, social plugins on your website, is Jesus. People are just looking to either buy a car or to get their car serviced or to ask you a question about their Ford or their Toyota. I mean, that's as hard as it needs to be. So at the same time, if you have your data all over the place, you guys know to get for it because this is going to come from me. But if your systems are talking to each other 100%, 100, fixed, opt, variable opt, all of these, right? If they're not talking to each other, then you're never going to get there. You're never going to be there. You're going to continue to throw your good money at things or unnecessary things that you think are just going to help you move 2 more units in the next 30 days. So that's the way you think.
Hey, Tim, here's how right you are. I closed a pretty big deal last week. And the guy said, "Why are you different, Feldman?" I said, "Did you call me?" He said, "Well, of course I did." I said, "Did I answer the phone?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Who else have you called this week to answer the phone?" He started laughing. He said, "Nobody." Communication is communication. And in a world where people fear it and are annoyed by it, I always say the same thing. I'm getting redundant. Nobody likes 9 prompts and then they hang up on you.
That's right.
The simpler and easier we make this, better.
So, Jason, I mean, obviously, we're all talking about simplicity, but what are the biggest problems you feel you have to solve on the website side of things?
Well, we have to take care of a lot of things, right? I mean, I think website providers aren't given enough respect as they deserve for everything that we do, from bringing in inventory, pricing, and compliance, and OEM restrictions, third-party integrations. And then we have to deal with technology as a whole, right? We have to deal with the browser update, Safari that came out, 17 version back in December, January, and that will block by default Google Tag Manager, Facebook and Google Pixels. So big problem that dealers probably aren't even aware of. And if anybody's using GTM, then they're integrating through GTM. You're going to have dead link, dead button, bad data coming from consumers. And then you have Google with their update coming out in Q4. And we'll see what that looks like. So we have to do a lot, right? There's a lot that web providers have to look at as we build. And we have to take into a lot of different things from, again, security, browser update, and then everything that is involved with the dealer and inventory.
So it's just a few challenging opportunities there.
Only a little bit.
So what's the good side of all these changes? I mean, obviously I know that Chrome has had some challenges from a browser point of view because they're adding too much in some people's opinion. And then you obviously have mobile, which is becoming more and more a part of how websites have to be done. Is there a good side to the fact that it's mobile first? I mean, what is your thought?
Well, I think it should be mobile first since 2007. When the iPhone came out. Okay, so number one, we're not, mobile first is not a new phrase. I mean, come on, that's something that Stone Age would use. But I think security is a big thing. And we have to really understand what that involves with privacy data and new laws coming. The days of the Wild West, when we talk about the internet and PII, is over. And then we have to look at, what are browsers going to do and what are they going to allow websites to do? That is really the big question mark. And dealers might not have the data that they think they have right now in half a year. We'll have to wait and look at what Chrome does with their update come Q4. That'll be a big deal. It'll be a big deal, but I bet you a lot of the automotive won't even notice it until they go into GA4 and they don't see any data in there. And they're like, what happened?
So for those of you who don't know, it's obviously Google Analytics 4. I know there's been a lot of warning in the industry about Google Analytics 4, but I don't think there's been a huge amount of reaction yet. And I know we had a show, I think it was a couple weeks ago, where we had a gentleman on who was on the compliance side. And there's been some fear about that recently because of challenges with some of the CRM providers, including CDK and even PBS a couple of years ago. But, you know, when you look at the good side of all this, when you're looking at mobile devices specifically being 70, in some cases higher by generations, I mean, what do you think the good side is, Tim? What's your thought?
Well, I mean, Google has wanted to, you know, they want to make the world better in all the ways that we've been talking about. For one reason, so they can have more of our attention. That's what it's all about, right? And you know, the GA4 thing is interesting because it is the thing that will be website analytics plus. It be the informant for Gemini or whatever version of a personal AI assistant with Google Assistant that Google pushes out to the market, which we're starting to forecast out is probably Q2 of next year. The important thing here is what does this mean on two fronts, right? It doubled down the mobile thing, the mobile concern, because if people stop going to google.com to search and they start asking a bot questions to get specific answers, any link they click on is more than likely to be, once again, coming from a phone. Or if you think about 2025 going forward, a smartwatch or a dashboard in a car, you know, there's a lot of directions this is to go. And it's the thing that will make you understand that your website has to have fewer plugins for Google to like it, for Gemini to be able to understand it, for GA4 to be able to be the conduit of that which is recent, authentic content, which is the other side of it too. Is you're not just using ChatGPT to put a new hero message up or a blog post every day, because Google will know.
Yeah.
And they'll have a way they're going to identify it and punish it for right or wrong. They will. Just as they did in indexing sites that were mobile friendly or responsive versus those that aren't, in terms of putting you up the page for search results. So this is important to talk about too, because there are a lot of people in our business who started to shoot off fireworks a month ago when Google announced that they're not going to kill the cookie, right? They're not going to deprecate the cookie.
Yeah.
But what they did say in the same announcement is that they were going to turn it over to the consumer and allow Chrome users of the world to decide whether or not the cookies or pixels tracking them.
Right.
And anybody who wants to think that the cookie's not going away because we said they're not killing it, the cookie's going away, just as Meta lost hundreds of millions of dollars when Apple started with application tracking transparency.
Right.
That was up 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
You know, so these are all connected. These are all things that are connected when we're talking about the website being the gateway in the top of the funnel for so many customer experiences. I would argue not the dealers that are doing it right are doing a fantastic job of direct one-to-one customer relationship. More of them will be doing that as the future goes along. I think as they become better with data governance, better understanding who their customers are, rather than just reaching for net new customers only. So these are the things that are going to be a whole lot of fun and a whole lot of reason to tune in on Monday morning with the AutoHub show, because month by month, and certainly quarter by quarter, you're going to see the whole market talking about how things have changed in terms of web traffic, in terms of analytics, because all the things we've used over the last 10, 15 years are either changing or being deprecated in a way that they have an existential.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading this morning that governments are now looking at tariffs on BYD and also steel. And I thought that was interesting because there's a start of an organization in North America, but more importantly, what are the OEMs thinking there? But also, what does that look like from a change in retail model point of view? But Doug, what do you think about the good side of the changes that are happening? I mean, it's kind of hard with the fact that some of this is unknown, but what do you think?
I just think the general awareness that is being created. I think that there's a lot of dealers are finally realizing that customers are experiencing better experiences every place else. So why not copy it? And maybe there's just a general awareness. I come back to my question a while ago. I just think that, and I'm assuming, and I wouldn't know, but I'm assuming the dealerships that are doing it right have the right person that is overseeing it. And not enough dealers probably spend the money necessary to make sure they have the right person to oversee their marketing, oversee their website, oversee all of this stuff. It just falls into the hands of the GSM or the GM along with 1,000 other tasks. And I think dealers are probably starting to realize this is a valuable position and I need to hire accordingly and pay accordingly and get good people to do this.
Right. And since we have Jason on, what questions should ownership and management be asking about their current website platform, and how difficult is it to change? Like, I mean, I know there's a lot of fear of change, but what questions should they be asking?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the fear needs to go out the window. I think there isn't a huge downside on moving from one platform to another. That is number one. I think, moving forward, dealers need to be more technical.
Right.
At the end of the day, and they need to understand that everything that is going on within the tech world is going to have an impact on their overall business, and that they need to, number one, they need to educate themselves on how it will impact, and be more proactive than reactive. I think that is always positive, right? If you can understand, like, hey, X, Y, and Z is going to happen in the next half a year, what can I do to protect myself or put myself in a better position when it does happen? And like Hayden was saying, I mean, Google, yeah, everybody was congratulating and running around and opening up champagne about the cookie policy that Google came out with, but they didn't read the fine print there. And they'll probably be very, very surprised if it is cookies are deprecated by default, right? Because Chrome seems to follow Safari, and Safari has done it with their I can't remember the name of it, intelligent pixel. But anyway, yeah, I mean, dealers need to be more technical at the end of the day and understand how everything that happens in the tech world has an impact on their overall business. Thanks
for that. And Doug, obviously you probably get asked about, the website platform as you add A to Z or A to Z sync. What do you think dealers should be asking about, their platforms?
You mean a platform that's added to the website?
Yeah, I mean, you're adding a platform to a website. I mean, you obviously get asked, what's the best platform for websites that in your opinion, like, what do you think?
Well, I in my opinion, again, two things. One, the OEM needs to stop their control of it. Let dealers use whatever.
Yep.
And two, I think it's just got to be user-friendly. That's got to be the easiest thing. Is it accurate and user-friendly? Those are the key things. And is what is done online duplicated when they come into the store? Is anything lost? So it's got to be easy, it's got to be accurate, and it's got to be an open market. Let dealers use whoever they want.
So dictating the shift and the other people of the world saying it must be these things. Whether or not worthy is a mistake, in your opinion.
Yeah, I think there's some fundamentals that every provider needs to be able to provide, but beyond that, yeah.
So free crappy
It's-
website's still not a good option.
Yeah, right. Free crappy websites it'll probably die in and of itself.
Fantastic. Tim, what do you think? I mean, you're asked about data, but are you ever asked about websites? And
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of what's connected to a customer data platform or a dealership data platform, which is in the vein of master data management, bringing all the data in, right? These are systems that can do things that DMSs will never be able to do, right? DMSs were built intentionally to do what they do, and a lot of them are built on framework code and just an arrangement that's 30 years or older, and it's really hard for them to make the turn here. So if you have the fluidity that we hear Doug talk about, again, with removing friction, without in what Larry's talking about, when it's simplification and just, to be quite honest, having a sales team who gives a shit, right, about the customer experience and relationship. If we can just get that to happen, anybody who's on the front line of engaging with the customer, just have them show up with purpose.
Yeah.
And if we can do that, the website is both the enabler and the fast follow when it comes to optimization of doing all the steps as well, and about just making it much more simple for people to not spend all day pushing a bunch of buttons, building and pricing, and then I'll take some marketing automation.
yeah,
And just hitting especially if it's mobile, just hitting a little button that says call now, right? Just do that.
Yeah.
Which I know, Ian, you're a big fan of where that can go in the direction of video and face-to-face communications.
Yep.
Given progress in technology. Got Joel here who gives a big thumbs up to that. But it's the same thing. It's just we need to, this is my last digression is this is what American Airlines does with my Twitter account is if, I live in Austin, I have to fly through DFW airport about 3 out of 5 trips. Texas is Texas. The weather does what it does. Flights get delayed and canceled because I'm going through DFW, and it always happens in DFW. And the lines at the gates are really long. I don't want to go talk to anybody. I just want to be an asshole on Twitter. So I say, thanks, American. Here I am again. I can't get home for dinner with my family. And then my phone rings 5 minutes later because they have my Twitter account matched with my Advantage account, which also has my flight locator on it. And when they call me, they don't say, hey, what's the problem? They say, hey, Mr. Hayden, we're very sorry. We see you're trying to get to Austin. We have a plane right now, 1 terminal over. They'll hold it for 15 minutes. Can you get there? To me, that is what it is. Not making me talk to a bot, not making me get into a customer contact center hell,
right,
where I've got to confirm my mother's maiden name before you'll come and talk to me about what's going on with me. So that's to Doug's points about seeing how other people do it. There's lots of opportunities for dealers to start to emulate and do the same.
Fantastic. And we're almost out of time. So Larry, final thoughts. Go ahead.
Well, why don't we flip this around and look at what an unbelievable opportunity it is. People can access you and you can access them through the phone. You don't need a billboard. You don't need to be on cable TV. You don't need a newspaper. Everything, if you look at it, is an opportunity as long as your head's in the right place.
Right.
Doug, any final thoughts?
Not really. I think we've covered it all. I think it'll be interesting if one day, if I go to a website, the experience I have at the dealership is different than Tim's because they know so much about me. If they personalize my website engagement for me and personalize Tim for Tim's and Larry for Larry's, etc.
Yeah. Jason, personalized websites? You think that's the future?
Yeah, I think it can be. I think it could be an added value to the experience of any website.
Fantastic. Joel, any final thoughts on the customer experience?
Yeah, we are seeing OEMs. We've had some contacts, and the questions that they're asking kind of lean towards they want to be able to sell the cars. Like I know Amazon is trying to do that with Kia. We got a call from a cruise line yesterday, a major cruise line that doesn't want the travel agents selling cruise ship services anymore. They want to do it themselves through our concept for video calls. So things are changing, and whether the dealers are going to take advantage of the communication that they find on websites, or whether it's going to be 2 levels up, you have to see where the future is going to be taking us.
Thanks, Joel. And Tim, final thoughts.
That's what I always say. Your data is actually your greatest asset. Most dealers are sitting on terabytes of rich intelligence on who has opened their wallet to them in the past. And it doesn't have anything to do with website clicks. It doesn't have anything to do with the billboards that Jerry's talking about, or your dialed in local cable operator and Fox News EDI, right? This is where you're just willy-nilly thinking that you're the right person in the right place. So, this for Doug to have that individualization vision realized on the website, it all starts with your data, because that's where we know everything about Doug. We're not going to be creepy. We're just going to give him what he wants.
Thanks very much. Have yourself a great week. Here we go.